Did you hear me okay, Mike?
Sorry about that. I had my volume down. Apologies. Um, Morning, Bill. I thought maybe we'll get into the history of the holder today on this Friday.
Sure.
No, well, you got what do you got? The specialization of the holder.
Yeah, it's not the position players much anymore.
There you go. Malcolm Jenkins. What are your thoughts on his career and him as a player?
Oh, tremendous. Tremendous. Great career at New Orleans and then Philly and now back to New Orleans. Really one of the better safeties through the years that we've competed against. Fortunately, he's been in the other conference, and we've only seen him a few times, but really does everything well. Very instinctive, smart player that can control the defense. Good tackler, good cover player. Always around the ball. Really, really good football player. I know he has a lot of positive impact on his teammates and team and coaches that have coached him. Just have so many positive things to say about him. So I'm not familiar with that, but just in terms of watching him play, that all comes out. And I haven't seen a lot of them, again, fortunately, but when I have, it's all good.
Next question, Chris Ryan, followed by Bob Sosa.
Morning, Bill. How are you?
Good, Chris.
I wanted to kind of get you expand a little bit upon some of your comments about Sean Payton from earlier this week, where you talked about how impressed you are with how he attacks defenses. What stands out specifically about a Sean Payton offense, and have you seen an altering with Drew Brees no longer there?
I think Sean's always done a real good job of using his personnel. And it's not like it's a whole bunch of new plays every week. That's not really what he does. But he uses his players effectively, and he uses a lot of personnel groups, so more personnel groups than any other team in the league. And those combinations, they operate very quickly. They're on and off the field. They're in and out of the huddle. They're up the line. The ball's snapped, and if you take time to break it all down, you can sort of figure out, yeah, well, this is why he's in this set, and that's why he's doing this and that, and that's what this guy does well, and that's where he's got him there. But it's hard to do it during the game because it happens so fast, and then as soon as that play's over, he's got somebody else in there and a whole nother set of personnel, formations, motion, ball snapped, and so it's hard to stay ahead of Sean just because he operates so quickly with so many variables. All the receivers play, all the tight ends play, the backs play. There's two different quarterbacks. There's a lot of stuff, and then just the breadth of the offense from his time there since whatever it was, '06 or whenever he got there. It's there's a lot of volume, and he doesn't. If you watch any game, I think you look at it and say, I've seen that play before. I've seen that play before, but it might have been 2 years ago, or might have been 8 games ago. So he's got a pretty pretty good breadth to his system, and he continually does things that they know how to do, that they're familiar with, but he dresses them up differently, or maybe it's something he hasn't used in a while and you're not preparing for it, but it's something that's really a part of their system, and it's not really a new play for them. So, and he, again, does a good job attacking defenses and matching things up that, create problems for your defense. And so when you look at film, you're looking at what he's done, but that was against somebody else's defense, and it's really hard to predict how he's going to treat you and what matchups he's really going to try to, exploit. Obviously we know Kamara's going to get the ball, and there's some things that are, pretty straightforward, but the details of it and how he does it and all are very creative, and he moves very fast, and so that's really, I think that's the problem that it creates, is how fast he moves, and how quickly the defense has to recognize and adjust, and then they're on to something else. They're a very good situational team. They obviously are coached that well and know what they're doing, and you better be ready to play good situational football against them, or they'll slice you up there too.
And obviously, each week carries that weight of being significant. But is a week like this exciting for you individually, in that you're matching up with this person that you have obviously a lot of respect for?
Well, we have respect for everybody in this league. Everybody has good players and good coaches, and they work hard, and they're all accomplished, or they wouldn't be here. So each week's a challenge, but when you play a team like this once every 4 years, there's a lot of water under the bridge from one game, from the 17 game to this game, and the 17 games relevant, but so are a lot of other things that happen along the way, and you just have to try to figure out how to best prepare your team. Again, defensively, I'm speaking, for the things they do now. Offensively, Coach Allen, again, takes a little different approach, but they've been very successful too, and the best run defense in the league in the last 3 years, and again, they're a good situational defense as well. They're outstanding in the kicking game, so there's really no plays off against the Saints. Doesn't matter what the play is; they're capable of producing an explosive play, and you can't really leave any stone unturned against them.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, you're welcome, Chris.
Next question, Bob Socci, followed by Mike Reese.
All right, thanks, Stacy. Mike, I had a couple of questions, and both are follow-ups. One is to something you just talked about with Sean. Watching tape, you may see a play that you've seen before, but it might have been 2 years ago or 8 years ago. And I think we've learned, at least in my time calling your games, that you guys are the same way. You may run a play in Super Bowl 51 that you ran in the same stadium years earlier, in the same kind of game, with the direct snap to James White there. Is that from when you come up with a play like that, generally speaking, without revealing state secrets, is that from recall? Do you go back and refresh? Do you and Josh go back and refresh, or with the defensive staff, plays through the years, or how do you draw from a play you ran 8 years ago and put it in this week's game plan?
All right. Well, that's a great question, Bob, and it usually comes with or I shouldn't say usually. Oftentimes, it comes with a lengthy game plan meeting. But some of the things you try to do, or you try to attack the defense. In this case, we're talking about our offense and their defense. You try to attack the defense, and so what are the areas you want to attack, and you fall back on your menu of things that man-to-man coverage, zone coverage, pressure, over, under, good defensive end, good defensive tackle, good corner, good whatever it is, and then you also have to take into consideration what you've done, what you're good at, and also what they've seen. So sometimes you run a play, maybe not because you think it's like the greatest play against this defense that's ever been drawn up, but because you've done something in the last couple of games that's kind of developed a little bit of a pattern that you want to break. And so the motivation for running the play maybe isn't necessarily that, it's going to just kill this defense. It's just that, well, this is a complement to what we've been doing, and it's a good sound play, and if they kind of overplay our tendency, then maybe we'll have an opportunity here, and then there are other plays that you think, well, this is really a good scheme play against this team, and if it's one you haven't run in a while, then you have to measure the creativity of the play with the execution, right? And so now this is a great play if we run this, but you can't always predict what the defense is going to be in, and if you catch the right thing, then you might have what you're looking for, and you might have an explosive play. If you catch something else, then you've got to be able to execute it against a different defense or a different coverage, or whatever. So and if you only run the play once or twice and you're counting on, well, they're going to be here, and then you get into the game and you call it and it's something else, then you kind of don't have much, right? So that's kind of the balance of picking out a play that looks good against some things, but there's no absolutes. You can never, I think, be 100% sure of where they're going to be or what they're going to call. They have enough variety in what they do that if it matches up, great. If it doesn't, you need to have some kind of an answer for the play in the event that you don't get the look that you're hoping for or expecting. So however you create that. And so those are the kind of things that you go back and forth on. And if you always knew what the play they were going to run was or what defense they were going to be in, it'd be a lot easier to call plays. But that's not the case. So you have to have, as a team, you have to be able to execute whatever it is you call against, multiple things. Of course, you have a lot more control on that on offense than you do on defense, but it's still some of the same fundamental issues. So that's, kind of, I would say, the nuts and bolts of the decision-making process, and then what actually gets decided. Then that, of course, rolls into, maybe you have a couple plays, a way to attack a certain coverage or whatever, and the quarterback's like, well, I really like that, and it might be, well, this one's a little harder for me, or it's not, it's not as clean. I like this other one a lot better. Well, then you go with the one that, the quarterback likes better, obviously, because he's the one who has to read it and throw the ball. Or if it's a running back, maybe it's, here's a couple, running plays, but the back really is better at doing one thing than the other, and maybe you set that preference because of who you're going to have running the ball, on that play, whether that's, again, we have several backs, so depending on who's going to be in there doing it, maybe you might prefer one over the other based on, on that person's style or the type of runner he is. So, again, there's a number of things that go into it, and like those are some of them. So, and that, again, that leads to sometimes some longer game plan meetings.
And yeah, and just very, very quickly related to that, regarding the quarterback's input, for example, on an offensive game plan, when you go from a veteran quarterback, thinking back to a scene in an NFL films piece back in 2009, I think, where he was recalling something that you ran in the past, and you were talking about Ed Reed and the Ravens and what they do, and he could draw from his memory. Well, now you have a rookie quarterback who doesn't have that memory bank.
That's right.
Yeah. So how much leeway does a young quarterback have to say, I don't like this player? How do you get him to feel confident enough to say, I don't like that play, as opposed to just agreeing to run.
Yeah, and I think that's a really it's a great question, and it's part of the whole coaching process. A lot of times a young player might say, I don't really like that play, and part of it may be he doesn't really understand the full play, because he just doesn't have enough experience with it, and so sometimes. The player will come around maybe after you've run the play 2 or 3 times in practice and say, oh, I see that now. I really like it. I didn't at first, and this was the where it was cloudy, but now that really makes sense to me, and I love this play. Like, I see exactly what we're trying to do. And sometimes it goes the other way, and it's just one of those things that for whatever reason one player is comfortable with it, and the next player just for whatever reason isn't, and then you run it and it doesn't have a good result, and you're like, oh, we kind of knew this, wasn't something that this particular player was, felt good about. And so you just have to make that decision as a coach that, you just, if they don't like it, or if it doesn't look good in practice, or you're not confident in it, then throw it out. And we have enough other plays that we can run, but I think that's the developing the relationship with, the head coach, the quarterback, the offensive coordinator / play caller, and kind of everybody being on the same page. But, in the games, things move quickly and things happen quickly. And there's definitely a decision-making element that every quarterback has. That's he has the ball, he sees what he sees, he has to make a decision, and the coaching is really out of it at that point, because things have happened that have overridden the intent or the execution of the play. So, but how all that gets decided, I'd say it's certainly a process, and it's no different on defense. It's some linebackers that that say, well, I don't want to run this defensive lineman on a stunt because he doesn't run it very well. I'd rather just play it straight. Okay, the next guy gets in there and says, hey, this other guy's in here. If he's in there, I'm calling that stunt because I think that'll be a great call for us in that situation. So some of that's a little bit dependent on the personnel and how confident the players who are making those decisions, whether it's a coverage adjustment or a stunt or a play call or that kind of thing. It's then the players have to make that decision as the opponent presents it.
Bill, thank you very much. My apologies to my colleagues. Thanks for your patience as well.
Yeah, those game planning questions are always interesting.
It's fascinating. Thank you.
Mike Reese, followed by Zach Cox.
Hey, Bill, I know the focus is on the Saints. I did want to ask if you had any response to Alex Guerrero's remarks in the Boston Herald about his view of your handling of Tom Brady, if you had any response to those remarks.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I know there's a lot of interest for obvious reasons in next week's game, but we're focused on the Saints here, and on Monday we'll get to next week.
Next question, Zach Cox, followed by Ian Hart.
Morning, Bill.
Hey, Zach.
Jakobi has played pretty much every offensive snap this season. Just curious what kind of growth you've seen from him from the end of last year up through now.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, just really as a player, Jakobi's had a very, I would say, steady growth since he's come here. Undrafted. Really was kind of a little bit of an unusual fit in the offense just from his background, and it's interesting. I talked to coaches that he had at NC State, and he's just an interesting kid. He's not really the profile of a slot receiver. He's not really the profile of a perimeter receiver, but he does both, and he has a good skill set that enables him to be multiple, and he's smart. And just doesn't really, I would say, fit the the exact profile you would have for one particular spot, but the combination of all of them, he does pretty well, and he's become a much better in every phase of the game, blocking, man-to-man route running, inside routes, outside routes, zone awareness, just adjusting to the quarterback, which he's played for now really 3 different quarterbacks, so that's all part of it too, and he continues to do a lot of the little things that are important, not only at his position but within the entire group, and has given a lot of good leadership to the receiver group because he has the most experience in our system of any of those players. So of course Nelly and KB have played a lot of football, but Jakobi's played more for us. So. But it's been very, consistent, and it hasn't, it wasn't just 1 to year 2, but it was, and then year 2 to year 3, he's really, moved up every year and throughout the course of each season too. So I think everybody, I certainly have a lot of respect for what he's accomplished, and how hard he's worked to work on his weaknesses and improve those areas to become a kind of a receiver that can do a lot of different things for us. So I'd say as we wrap this up, that's a good segue into this weekend with Julian, being Julian Edelman Day. That's kind of similar to what Julian did. And Julian is another guy that kind of, first of all, he's a quarterback. So is he a running back? Is he a receiver? Is he a returner? Well, turns out he's actually played a little bit of defense too. And Julian also played inside and outside, and did multiple things for us, and took him a little while to get on the field, probably a little longer than it's taken Jakobi, but in the end, had a tremendous career, had tremendous production in every area, receiving and run after catch, punt returns, and was a good blocker, was a really tough, competitive kid. Was right up there at the top of the guys that I've coached. And so it's really, be great to see Julian. Assuming that he doesn't like roast me or get into a big impersonation. But be great to see him again and recognize him for the great career that he had here, and how much he meant to this team, this organization, and how much he stepped up for us in big games, year after year, week after week. So thank you. Appreciate everyone's time. Sorry for the long-winded answers. We'll see you Sunday.
Thank you, Coach.
Great,
Thanks, everyone.
thanks, Bill.